So the portal, I thought I wasn't sure about the audience, so I thought I'd start from scratch and just explain what the rationale was. So I think the first speaker uh, did mention about whether we could take trainees out and into the periphery and interest them in where the work is. I think pathology doesn't really fit into that. That's more about the clinical side of things. But in terms of pathology also, if you were a trainee in London, say, for example, it would be a different set of hospitals that you'd rotate through. And I've tried to illustrate here that depending on the geography of where you were, you might end up in a specialist sarcoma center, you might not, you might do something which was more specialist, or, and obviously then there was the variation amongst, besides the case mix, about the local culture, what kind of teaching sets there were. There were some centers which were FRC path training centers, in terms of running courses. So you got a much more wider coverage. The trainers vary in their approach to things, which is always helpful in giving you a variety of experience, but sometimes the curriculum coverage suffers. So in having digital pathology enabled learning solutions, it gives us equity of access. It gives us a curriculum mapped and a standardized approach to learning, wherever, to fill wherever gaps are. We don't want to replace it. It's more a blended approach where you go through your normal training, but you supplement where you need with a digital resource. And that's the idea behind this. It obviously gives you flexibility. You can do it anytime you like, and then access. So how did it start? I think in 2019, when Jo was the president, she had a conversation, an idea around this. It crystallized in some funding coming through from HEE. And we started having initial meetings. The photos that I have, besides Professor Joe Martin under the initial team, just to mention them, are Neil Ralph, who's the head of the Technology Enhanced Learning team, which Professor MacLeod mentioned. And then Claire Heaney, who's the project manager from Health Education. And it was me. We had discussions around what we needed to do, which resulted in the recruitment of Michael Brodsky, who's now left but has been replaced by Francis. And we've been kind of the nuclear team in terms of leading the work, but it has been supported by a much wider team, both within the college and Health Education England. Obviously, COVID comes into everything that we talk about these days. We started in 2019, so obviously the first wave hit us. We were delayed by a few months, not badly. I think about 5-month delay. So it did affect us in terms of the plan for implementation. When we moved forward, these are the phases that usually IT projects go through. What's called alpha, which is getting user research, thinking about the design and costing. The output is you get a prototype, one from a design perspective, what aesthetically what it might look like, and then what will be the underlying technical architecture. And then you get detailed documentation of that. In what was going on behind that, you can see at the bottom of the screen, there were tenders that needed to go out, or at least some sort of shortlisting process needed to happen. Then we needed to interview the people or the providers in the technology space who were going to deliver on this. So for the first phase, the technical partner was a company called BJSS through an open tender process. And for the second phase now, the beta phase, which is the build phase, where we are building the actual website. It's Software. And to mention, the Technology Enhanced Learning team have created something called a Learning Hub. If you haven't seen it, that's easily available and accessible to anyone within nhs.net email. And that is what has been the basic founding, sort of the foundation for Pathology portal. We did think about developing something from scratch and hosting it, but we thought that in terms of the long-term sustainability of the project, it was best to be embedded within a space which was going to get constant support from Health Education England, and obviously in terms of maintenance, what needed to be supported there as well. So what we've got now at this point is what's called MVP1. Sorry, there's acronyms. It's called minimum viable product. This is all things that I've learned. I'm a jobbing histopathologist, so this is all new to me over the last few years. But minimal viable product is what a technical company will give you at the end of the beta phase, and then you can have various enhancements to it. So it's a reiterative process. It's an iterative process where you go through testing by users. So once we put out the MVP, you will be able to use it now. You will see and give us feedback on what works, what doesn't work, and then we keep doing constant content development at this stage, and we undertake an evaluation. So there is a formal evaluation plan now. Obviously, I don't want to go into the details of that, but there is an education fellow who's working on it, and we hope to be taking it live as soon as the site is launched formally. So what's available now as of in the MVP one? So if you see the single sign-on, what that means is, besides having access via the Learning Hub website, you can actually go through your college login once it's working. It has now the background connectivity between the two systems, between the college system and the Learning Hub itself, hosted by Health Education England. So that's connected via single sign-on now. It's embedded, as I said, within the Learning Hub, and anyone with the nhs.net or .ac.uk or the devolved nation emails within NHS are able to access it. You have a whole slide scan image viewer along with capability to host a multiple variety of files. You can put papers on, movies, if you have a lecture, PowerPoints, and so on. You can have multiple choice questions at this point in time. It does some funny things. It organizes the answers by in alphabetical order if you put them in automatically for you. So there's some interesting functionality which has come. Annotations are available, so you can annotate areas of interest or what you want to point out. You can assign copyright to that, which has a few things that I'll show you in a second. You can link it with social media like Twitter or Facebook if you want to tweet things. The good thing about it, I have been involved in this space in that there is no cost for us in terms, there is a cost to it, obviously, but in terms of a user, there is no cost to pay. In terms of a local or a regional, institutional or deanery level cost, there isn't. It's mainly centrally funded by HE. And the funding's now coming from different streams, not just the technology enhanced team. It's coming via the Cancer Hub team with work stream within HE, because they obviously have an interest in getting some of the specialties which are slide-based develop learning resources. And then what we have are some specialty specific folders which will be available in a week's time. While this is the functionality of the website, what obviously needs to happen in the background, which is at the bottom of the slide, is to have some sort of operational structure. So we have 3 or 4 boards now which are in place. I don't want to go into the detail, but they report into the college and obviously into HEE, into the Technology Enhanced Learning team, because that's vital in delivery. We have a governance structure, which obviously has people responsible for the output. We keep an eye on the finance. We have weekly reports on how the budget's being spent, and pleased to say that we are still pretty much on target, and we have already secured additional funding for the next few phases. So it looks like everything is good to go, and we will enhance content and functionality over the next 6 months to a year. Content development is only happening now because of you need a website to enable content. It's obvious. So we have an editorial board in place for that, and you're more than welcome to contribute. You can access it. And if you need rights to develop content, please contact any of the core team. The email addresses and contact details, other contact details are on the website, on the college website as well. And then I mentioned the further funding which is available. Just to give you a quick flavor, so if I click on that, it gets me to my account into Learning Hub. I hope you can see that.
We can't see it, Hasan, I'm afraid.
Sorry. Okay, I will just have to share that quickly. So hopefully now you can. And once you go in, this is the Learning Hub. Are you able to see it now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this is, I will do a pathology. So obviously, because Pathology Portal is one of the many learning resources on the hub, You go in, for example, if you go into cellular pathology there, you can search the catalog, or there are different things which are already online. I'll just show you quickly a couple of things. So there's the capability to put images on, and you have multiple choice questions below that. And let's say we select an answer, it gives you can add feedback as much as you like. You can add pictures in the feedback for the other options, and you can obviously then record. Hopefully the idea is then you can download your achievement in terms of completing a particular piece of learning, so you can add it to your learning portfolio. Then obviously it gives you this background information. You can rate the resource, who's it contributed by, author, and the license, what I talked about, the copyright. Very quickly, just to show you another one, if I said neuropath, hopefully it should bring up, yeah. So it brings up cases by specialty, and there are increasing number of resources now. So once I click on that, sorry, that was a bit slow. So just hopefully should get us in. Yeah, so there you have the history, this time a bit more detail. You can actually add images for things like MRIs or CT scans or ultrasounds. This is an example with annotation and a whole slide image. So for example, if I went into annotation 4, I can zoom in and then click on the annotation. It tells me that it's marking the fibrillary stroma in this CNS lesion. You obviously have the zoom functionality and the rotate, which comes with it. So that's the Learning Hub at the moment. It's up and running, and you're able to get into it and register. Coming back to the presentation, I'll just quickly run through the last few things that I wanted to show you. So this is where we are on the left-hand side. You've got access to the system. It's got storage, which is pretty much unlimited at the moment. You have the capability to add questions, load whole slide and multiple file formats. You're going to have specialty folders by the end of the week, external links, editing capabilities. And then what we're hoping to get onwards is more specialized folder structure, where if you wanted to go within different reporting areas of, say, cellular pathology, you could do that. You could go into different modalities or different user groups, like we could group it like undergraduate content, postgraduate content, and so on. We will enable Z stacks, which are required for cytology. We keep constantly refining and removing bugs that are reported by users and test teams. We're trying to there's some issues around uploading speed, so we're still working on that. Mapping it to learning levels. So we define learning levels by correspond to sort of roughly the ST1 to ST5 structure, where you go through increasing levels of difficulty, mapped to multiple curricula, including the STPs, the medical curricula, and biomedical science folders, learning folders. And dedicated sections for undergraduate and other specialist interest groups are planned, which hope to be coming in MPV +2, sorry. And then what's the vision for the future? We want to have some sort of learning intelligence in there. So for example, if you went in and you were a ST1 trainee, you were doing skin, you could look at a fibroepithelial polyp, and the next thing you can do is look at a more complex specimen, and it keeps pushing you upwards. It's a bit like Duolingo, where depending on your ability, you're giving increasing levels of complexity of learning. And that's presented to you, and hopefully it becomes semi-automated. So once you achieve a particular level, it gives you a folder where it says that, you know, Hasan Rizvi attained level 3 out of 5 in dermatology inflammatory skins that he was looking at, the learning set. And then as a trainer, I can log in and say that, okay, where is a particular trainee in this? Obviously, it will give you the capability. Now we're getting much more detailed assessment functionality in MPV 1+ stage, so we should get that. We're thinking about whether we can use immersive technologies, and then obviously have links with the learning portfolio online. So that's where we are with this. I just want to thank the people who've been involved, everyone at the college, at the TEL team, the software and BGSS teams who've dedicated a lot of time to this, and all the trainees and trainers who've engaged at both the stages. Thank you very much. Just to show you a 3D enhancement of red blood cells, which caught my eye this morning. So I thought I'd show it to you. Thank you. Any questions are more than welcome.